Hello and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining this week's episode of ATRAM's webinar series. Today we'll be talking about consumption, keeping up with it given the new environment we live in. I am Paolo Edilior, Business Development Manager at ATRAM. I'd like to let you know that this webinar will be recorded and that copies will be disseminated within the day as well as posted on all our social media pages. Make sure to stay until the end as we will be wrapping up with a quick feedback survey. Our economy is heavily dependent on consumption. Perhaps our demographic and psychographic has a lot to do with this. Consumption is also correlated with earnings. Essentially, whatever it is we buy, experience, or partake in will directly impact the performance of companies. We'd like to take this opportunity to look beyond our shores and explore fresh perspectives in the world of consumption that we're all part of. To talk more about this in more detail, I'd like to welcome back one of our trusted resource specialists. He is a CFA charter holder and ATRAM's product manager, DJ De Jesus. Hey DJ, nice to have you back again.
Hey Bao, nice to have you also as our host. Hello everyone, I'm DJ De Jesus, the product manager of ATRAM, and we are very excited to discuss this topic about consumption. It's possibly the easiest to relate to because that is what we spend on. But with the whole COVID-19 pandemic, consumption might be the last thing on our minds. But hopefully with this talk, we can provide you with a new perspective on how we consume and get you excited about the ATRAM Global Consumer Trends Feature Fund. But before we get to the meat of the talk, we'd love to hear from you. This is a consumption talk after all, so let's discuss your personal consumption. We prepared a poll and we'd like to ask, during this pandemic, has your consumption spending increased, decreased, or stayed the same? Let's give you some time to answer this question. So please answer the poll that has popped up in your screen. All right. So from the polls, wow, I'm personally surprised to see that some have increased, some have stayed the same. But for most people, as expected, consumption has decreased for this period. So, all right, let's take a look at some statistics that we're seeing with the economy right now. So could we go please to the next slide? On mobility, we are definitely generally out less. And this is statistics from Google latest for the Philippines. And on consumption, we are also, as we've seen in the poll, spending less. So could we go to the next slide for that? But one of the things that we've seen, interestingly, is that communication is up by 7%. And we are spending more on communication. And on the next slide, we could see that mobile traffic has increased by about 50% in the second quarter of this year. We also could see that broadband installations have reached about 120,000 per month. And with Duterte pressuring our telcos are spending about 100 billion pesos on tech. Currently, 4G, which is our means of communication, is available roughly around 80% in the Philippines. So the bright spot of consumption, whether it's here in the Philippines or actually abroad, is through technology. So let's ask a similar question to a while ago, but with a slight tweak. Has your online spending increased, decreased, or remained the same? Please answer the poll question. We'd love to hear from you. Okay, waiting for the result. And wow, although some people have decreased and some people have remained the same, there's a alarmingly, not really alarmingly, expectedly big increase in terms of online spending. And that's a testament to how technology has really changed our lives. So let's rewind back to before COVID, back in 2016, which is the time when 4G was rolled out into the world. Could we go to the next slide? You will notice that global smartphone penetration overtook PC broadband connectivity during that time. And 4G has really changed the way we consume. I remember back then, 2015 to 2016, it was really an app revolution. For me, it was Grab and Uber that pops up into my mind. And Another technology that got so popular at that time also was cloud technology. With fast internet speeds at the touch of our hands, mobile has truly changed the way we consume. And this year, with the COVID-19 pandemic, that investment theme of digital consumption has been accelerated. If you go to the next slide, you could see that locally, COVID-19 has really bumped up e-commerce. In a Nielsen survey that was conducted about April, around 6% of the respondents were first-time adopters of online shopping. 17% increased their online shopping activities. 40% decreased their visits to the grocery, and 44% said they were willing to increase online spending. Pao, did I hear from you?
Yes, what's up?
So, we had the poll with our audience with e-commerce. How about you personally? How has your e-commerce been throughout this pandemic?
Oh, it's just skyrocketed. I mean, the convenience it brings. Basically, most of the things that I buy is office tools, mouse, headphones. So yeah, most definitely.
Wow, did you know that I didn't have e-commerce apps on my phone until 2020? I didn't have like Shopee or Lazada on my phone.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So I'm one of those 6% first time adopters, although I didn't take that survey. And I think that is a testament to how COVID is really changing the way we consume even more. Back in 2019, you would not have seen Lazada or Shopee in my smartphone, but now I rely on it. So on the next slide, we could see that with social distancing, the share of e-commerce in retail spending has increased to about 15% in the US. And that number is going to be bumped up. The expectation is going to be revised higher. And we're expecting that number to be higher not only in the US, but also in the Philippines, also around the globe, the longer we stay quarantined. The pandemic is a pandemic because it's reached a global scale. So it doesn't affect only us, it doesn't affect only the US, it affects the whole globe. And with it, the way we consume continues to be more digital. On the next slide, you could see that time spent on our phones has already increased before COVID. But with us having to rely on technology, that time spent on our phones has increased significantly. This is a new 2016 for us, a new 2015 to 2016 for us. So with 2015, you had the 4G rollout. Now with the COVID pandemic, it's forcing people to adopt digital. And digital media is definitely the new media. On the next slide, we could see that one of the digital lifestyle themes that is really taking strides is video gaming. As seen on this slide, video gaming is a fast-growing industry. And on the next slide, we could see that 2016 was a year when a particular app changed the face of gaming. And that game was called Pokemon Go. It took the world by storm. And that was made possible by 4G, but also computing speeds on your iPhone. If you look at your iPhone or your smartphones, you'll notice that the computing speed has increased. Smartphone computing is becoming faster, and it has become faster than traditional video gaming consoles that you could see in the market, like the Xbox 360. And we have also learned to compact our gaming experience, so much so that a new console capitalized on that and became very popular, the Nintendo Switch. It was a device you could play at home or play on the go. And in 2020, this video gaming theme has been sped up with us having to stay inside. Filipinos love playing basketball. Pao, do you agree? Do we love
Of
do we love
course,
NBA
yes.
and the UAAP? But have you seen people play basketball in the streets lately?
Not really unless you're in the NBA bubble.
Yeah. So there you have it. When it comes to the way we play sports, we couldn't even do it now with the social distancing aspect. But globally, people have gone to shift, going from outside sports to video gaming to play the games they could not outside. And to give you a peek at an example of how video gaming as a theme sped up, we look at the #1 video gaming during the height of the pandemic, Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing was a success as this latest game in this kind of home and village building simulation franchise surpassed the lifetime sales of over 10 years of its previous iterations in just 6 weeks. Imagine 13.41 million copies of this game being purchased in 6 weeks when it would have taken more than 10 years for its previous games. And this game has sparked companies like Sentosa and Getty Museum to do digital advertising through the game, a sort of e-tourism. And on the next slide, before we leave video gaming, let's go back to the basketball analogy. What caused this in the first place is the rise in esports, a field where Filipinos actually thrive. We've had winners in Dota, Tekken, and other games on a global scale. I was a previous Smash player as well. So viewership of the video game industry has surpassed the NBA and even the US biggest sport, the NFL. Hey, if you can't play ball outside, let's play ball inside. And if you like what you're watching, you'd want to buy that video game yourself. But unlike traditional sports, revenue for video gaming still has potential to grow. Next slide. Also on digital lifestyle, let's talk about another industry that benefits from that. And music is an industry that has been revived by the digital lifestyle, revived by apps like Spotify. People started spending again on music after music became kind of free because of piracy. And there's a whole lot of potential for growth. And you could see that through the subscriptions that are just skyrocketing. And on the next slide, let's talk about where consumption will go next. Digital themes are definitely benefiting while we stay at home. But once we have a vaccine, we will be itching to get back to those Instagram-worthy hashtag experiences that we love. Traveling, going to the movies, having a good dinner at a restaurant, and all the things that we used to do. And the ATRAM Global Consumer Trends Feeder Fund is quick to recognize the ever-changing landscape of our consumption, digital or non-digital. So on the next slide, let's take a look at the fund. The fund makes it possible for you to invest not only into the digital lifestyle we currently have, but also it looks into the future when we can get back to those experiences. And all that is by investing in Philippine pesos. It really provides you that great access to these themes that are really pushing forward despite, the challenges of the pandemic. So why the ATRAM Global Consumer Trends Feeder Fund? Let's go to the next slide to give you our 3 reasons why you would want to invest in this. First, it is flexible. It recognizes that, hey, digital lifestyle is here to stay, but also that our consumption will continue to change with the times and that the fund is ready to find and latch on to the next big trend. Next, the fund provides you access and diversification, access to these global companies of which we consume but normally have no access to. You could go for tech names here like the telcos, which is the closest, like Globe or Smart, or you could go for consumer names here like Jollibee or Wilcon or Pure Gold. But this provides you more access to the companies that we actually consume. Thus, this fund is really made for us. It's made for you, it's made for me. And it allows us to diversify our portfolios, going for a theme that is poised to work whenever we consume. And we consume a lot. The fund is currently invested into these e-commerce names. In the next slide, I'm sure you have used Lazada or Shopee in this pandemic. That's owned by Alibaba and a Southeast Asian company called Sea, very apt. And also JD.com and the US giant e-commerce company Amazon. And the fund is also invested in video game names and companies. You can see that in the next slide. We mentioned Pokemon Go and Animal Crossing, and these are owned by Nintendo. But we also wanted to give focus to esports heavyweights, especially here in the Philippines. It's very popular, World of Warcraft or WoW, and League of Legends, LOL. And funnily, League of Legends is also owned by Sea, which is an e-commerce company. You also could see the #1 game of all time at this point, Call of Duty, and that's owned by Activision Blizzard. So this fund has a good mix of both innovative gaming and also leaning towards esports. And on the next side, we'll even show you you have access to more digital lifestyle themes at its best. You have video streaming, so the fund is invested in names like Netflix and Disney. It also has access to digital media like Facebook, Twitter, Google. It's also latching onto that ride sharing aspect. So in the US, what's big is Lyft. In the rest of the world, it's Uber, except for in Southeast Asia where it's Grab. And you also can invest into things like online dating. Would you know that Match.com, that old website, owns Tinder? And Tinder is taking the online dating game by storm. And you also have fashion names like G3 and Farfetch. G3 is actually a group of brands that owns brands like Guess, Levi's, Donna Karan, New York, and more names that have become staples to us. And of course, the companies that benefit from music streaming like Sony and Vivendi. So on the next slide, we could see that it's no wonder that since we launched the fund in end February, it's up 41.69% as of August 2020. This is the number one fund year to date. And it's because it's flexible, accessible, a diversifier, and truly made for you. I'm personally invested in this fund because I believe in the story of the fund. So if you believe in the story of the fund, I pass the floor to my colleague, Pat. She will guide you on how to invest in the fund that is made for you. If you have any questions about this fund, please reserve them at the end of this presentation. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. To open an account with ATRAM, you just need to visit our website, www.atram.com.ph. Here, you can learn more about all the funds we offer, including the ATRAM Global Consumer Transfeeder Fund. But if you have more questions, visit the website's Frequently Asked Questions page or the ATRAM Academy page. It will then guide you to our online investment platform, Seedbox. It's as simple as that. I hope you do visit our website, www.atram.com.ph. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat, for letting our audience know how to invest in the fund. And thank you, DJ, for presenting such a concise and very clear presentation. So at this point, shall we look at the questions from the audience?
Sure. Let's go.
All right. So first one is it too late to invest given that the fund has a pretty dominant performance, 41%, as you mentioned?
Yeah, you're asking if we've missed the boat, right? Always a good question. First, we do not advise timing the market, but one thing to remember about the fund is that it's actively managed. And that means the fund does manage its exposures and checks if the stocks are expensive or not. In fact, the fund has been trimming exposures on stocks that have really strengthened. We've talked about the video gaming theme and also Asian e-commerce. And those themes have been having earnings that were higher than expected. And likewise, the stock market has been really strong on that. And they've been trimming on those names and adding to exposures and buying names that have attractive growth moving forward. So if you are thinking that you've missed the boat, the fund is already thinking of the next big thing and is already investing into things. If we go to the slide wherein we show the fund, you'll see that in the themes, e-commerce is still pretty much the biggest portion. But you'll notice that the second biggest theme, which is video gaming, is now the third biggest theme, wherein it was moving towards those experiences, travel. So it's really focusing on the future already. And that's the beauty of the fund. It doesn't only look at what's happening now, but it also looks at what are the trends in the market and how it could best leverage on growth moving forward. So
thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for that, DJ. A more specific question regarding the fund. What is the AUM or the assets under management size of the fund as of now?
Okay, so in terms of the asset management size, are you asking for our feeder fund or for the target fund?
This particular fund, I believe, because I believe it was launched in Feb of 2020 this year, right?
Yeah, currently The fund hasn't been uh, in the radar of people. So the current AUM is about, let me just double check. It's
Okay, I
about
think
12 million pesos at the moment.
I see.
So yes, still a good opportunity to invest, and definitely more room for growth also in the AUM side.
And again, for this particular fund, are you recommending that it could also be for wealth management, meaning no fear of much capital loss?
Well, let's be honest. In terms of equities, there's always risk for capital loss. Let's put it out there in the table. Whenever you're equity investing, you have to realize that you are at risk for capital loss, especially also because this fund, it's a pretty concentrated fund, and that would also mean that it is higher risk. But at the same time, you could always use this as a diversifier, add to your portfolio, and have this on top of maybe local investments or other investments that you would have. And by diversifying, you always lower the risk. Another way is always looking long term, because volatility in the short term will always be big. It will always be high. But if you look towards the long term, you could realize better returns. And for this fund, I'd like to share that we see that the long-term growth potential is really 21.4% based on consensus estimates. So 21.4% for the long term, double-digit return, that's pretty good.
Okay, so how is this fund different from ATRAM's tech fund? Because I believe in the previous webinars, we've featured the tech fund. How is this fund different from that?
So how is this fund different from the tech fund? So the Global Technology Fund that David discussed was focused more on the beginnings of tech, the semiconductors, what drives tech. It's also looking at the small to mid-cap companies that are going to be the next future big names. This fund focuses on how we consume. So it focuses on our own consumption. It's just that uh, our consumption is skewed towards tech, and it will continue to be skewed towards tech. So you'll see that if we go to the other names slide, we have names here like Netflix, Facebook, Google, Twitter. So these names are less of a focus in terms of the Global Technology Fund, but it's more of the focus of this fund. You'll also see that this fund is heavy on e-commerce and video gaming, which is less of a focus also in global technology. While there is certainly some overlap, this is more on how we consume. So you wouldn't see something like a G3 or a Farfetch in that kind of portfolio.
All right, thank you for that. Currently, the fund is highly invested in e-commerce, as you mentioned. Will there be a time that the allocation will change?
For now, this is a long-term theme that the fund is looking at. So e-commerce is something that is here to stay. But of course, if there's a new theme that will come up and disrupt, the fund will be flexible enough and discover that theme and invest into it.
All right. Since this is a fund that invests in consumer trends, what other trends did the fund previously invest in?
The fund was actually named a different name before. It was called the Global Leisure Fund. And it was called that because it invested into hotels, into casinos, into traveling. And that's one of the themes that it had before. When it was back in the financial crisis, it actually invested into consumer staples as well. Names that are quality names, brands that everybody consumes. So that also lends to the flexibility of this fund. It really tells you that, hey, the Consumer Trends Fund allows you for whatever trend is going forward. One of the trends also back in 2016 that was popular were electric vehicles, and self-driving cars. So Tesla was becoming very popular then. So when that stock was going up, this fund was invested into that. And of course, they pared down that exposure, and it's actually one of those exposures that they might consider adding again in the near future.
All right. So thanks for that, DJ. You talked about self-driving cars. I have an interesting question from the audience. Does this fund invest in artificial intelligence or AI?
Artificial intelligence would be more for the Global Technology Fund, because that doesn't really talk about our consumption. It talks about technology. So again, to help distinguish between those two funds, this is really more on how we consume. It's just that there's a tech element because of how tech disrupts our consumption, and technology focuses on the other aspects of tech, like for example, cloud computing, artificial intelligence, and other concepts that doesn't really relate to our consumption.
All right. So how risky is the fund given that it's invested in US stocks?
So the riskiness of the fund is on the aggressive side. So it's a growth focused fund. And when you're focused on growth, the tendency really is to be skewed more risky. But at the same time, if you think of the story of the fund is on consumption. It's something that we do every day. And it's also very technology heavy, which is something we also use every day. And we personally view technology now as the new utilities. If you think about it, if it's something you use every day, then it's always good to have on your portfolio. You could feel safe about it. So while it's so hot that it tends to be more volatile, it's also more relatable to you, more relatable to me. Again, I am personally invested in this. So I feel that while there is volatility in the fund, if you invest long term, realize that 21.4% forecast, that sounds really good to me.
All right, DJ, thank you. For my last question, how much is the minimum to invest in this fund?
So the minimum to invest in this fund is just 1,000 pesos. And you could invest in this fund through Seedbox, as Pat said. So go to atram.com.ph and learn more about this fund.
All right, DJ, any final words?
Final words, we'd love to hear from you also in terms of this fund. Hear from you by investing into this fund, asking more questions if you'd want. But more importantly, we'd love to just deliver new ideas like this to you, because we think that we could deliver a need that isn't being serviced by the market. We launched this fund this year hoping that people could latch on to something very relatable, and this is really one of our more relatable funds, and it really shows. Top performing fund year to date. So I hope you all latch on to the story as I have already latched onto it.
All right, I think we can leave it here for this webinar. Thank you, DJ, Pat, and to our audience as well. If you have any further questions or would like to know more about ATRAM's funds, strategies, please get in touch with your relevant ATRAM relationship manager or visit our website, www.atram.com.ph. Lastly, please answer the survey at the end of the session, as your feedback is valuable to us. We appreciate you taking the time to join, and on behalf of ATRAM, I would like to wish for the safety of you and your family. Best of luck. Thank you very much and have a great day.